What's up?
How's it going?
It's the episode 3.
We're already on number 3.
I know, it's so fast.
It's kind of crazy.
I know.
It is.
It's been a blur, all of this.
But it's been good.
It has been
Many more to come, hopefully.
Yeah, last time we left off, we got some of the best pictures in my life I've ever seen.
Yeah. I just wanted to clarify one thing about that too, Spencer. So was that picture that they used of you in the shower, is there a real picture of you doing that?
No.
So
I don't know why
I don't know.
I said that.
Because I was confused because, you know, obviously the picture that I received was an actual picture of me, an infamous picture. But with you, I was confused, like how they got. It looked like almost a Snapchat filter thing.
Yeah,
you know, with the real emojis. But I wasn't sure. But we'll have to ask him. But I was thinking about that.
They didn't send us the pictures at all either. So yeah.
And for anyone who has no idea what we're talking about, if you just go to last episode towards the end, you'll see.
Yeah, some great pictures. Yeah, we'll leave that to their imagination. Yeah, man. All right. So, well, how have you been? How's your? You know, we're done with the holidays. We're coming back to kind of normal life.
I know.
You're headed back to Philly this Sunday.
I am. Yep, we're recording this on a Wednesday, going back on Sunday, and I think I have kind of mixed feelings about it. Like it's always nice being home, and this house that I'm in is basically the one I've grown up in for most of my adolescence. So it's, you know, there's some positives and maybe some things that I like better about school, but leaving's always a little bit hard. But it'll be good to go back, get back to the school grind and setting. It's a long flight, and that's one thing I always dread. I hate sitting on airplanes for too long. And this time my layover is on the West Coast here in LA, so it doesn't really help. Just go down and then over instead of having like a nice midway point in the middle of the country. But you know,
it's surprising you don't stop in like Denver or something. You know?
Yeah, I normally fly Delta, and with Delta I usually stop in Minnesota or Denver or something, but I'm flying American this time, and so I think most of the American hubs are on the East Coast. There's like Charlotte, Dallas. I guess Dallas is west, but south. So,
yeah,
but yeah, should be good. How about you? How are you adjusting back to the work life? Right? How long you didn't really get too much of a break, right?
I got like a week and a half off, basically.
Okay.
Because it was the services and stuff. They were all like, we didn't have 2 Sundays on, so we just kind of got some weeks off. But yeah, our first week back was last week, and we're doing it's going really well. I'm enjoying kind of the routine, getting up in the morning and going to work, have my things I do, and planning for the future and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's getting a little more normal life. Jordan and I have been like renovating the casita a lot. So we just
any highlights?
We painted the walls. Now the thing is you can't really tell because it's unless you're us, because the wall was originally like a cream white, and then we like did like a more of a silver eggshell kind of white. So it was just, it went from white to white is what I'm trying to say. But to us it looks better, it feels better. And we also we bought an ottoman. We bought an ottoman. We're gonna get a little IKEA shoe rack thingy. Like we're doing some things in here. So we bought a rug. This rug is insane, dude. It's like a padded rug. It's amazing.
Padded? Is it like foam?
Yeah, it's like a yeah, pretty much. It's like it's like squishy kind of like, you know, you can kind of rest your feet in there. So
dang.
But yeah, man, it's been really good. We've been watching The Sopranos.
Oh, okay. That's an OG one, right?
It is an OG one. It came out 99. So a year after we
How many seasons?
It went for 6 seasons, pretty sure.
Okay, so into the early 2000s.
Yeah, 2000. I don't want to make a bad guess, but 2007, something like that. It was 2006, something like that. When it ended, and so it's been, people who've watched a lot of TV in their lives have seen The Sopranos, but Jordan and I haven't, and we really love it. So it's kind of a cool experience to go back and watch that. But otherwise, man, it's just really normal life, My brother's leaving tomorrow morning, and he's headed back to Virginia. So
he's going back east too.
He's going back east. Yep. So it's gonna be a fun time.
Nice.
Yeah, man. But yeah, anyway, we figured we would talk about COVID experiences.
Oh, we're gonna get canceled. No. I mean, I think it's safe to say too. Before, I was thinking about this before we got on here just now. It's like, just so everyone knows, you're talking to 2 vaccinated people, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's actually 3 because I think Jordan's in the room with you there. But so just keep that in mind. Not trying to stir anything crazy up, but maybe like some of the opinions won't be right in line with what everyone thinks, and that's okay. I think it's good to have conversations that don't necessarily follow the main narratives. Mm-hmm. So, anyways, quick disclaimer out there, trigger warning for anyone.
Well, like when I take the political compass test, I believe I'm in the bottom left quadrant, right? And I don't know where you're at, but that's so we have varied opinions.
Similar.
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of similar. The one thing too, I guess before we get into COVID, is it's really interesting. It shouldn't be that surprising that obviously as the COVID movement progressed, it just became more and more politicized. I think everyone can agree with that. But, I don't know. I just find that weird. Like, it's such an issue that deals with public health and is medical becomes political. And I guess maybe that's not, like I said, that shouldn't be too surprising because there's a lot of big, powerful corporations that are involved in public health and that kind of stuff. But it's funny how this one, like maybe a lot of other issues too have become very like, okay, if you say this one thing or if you have this opinion about COVID, you're immediately grouped into one sort of political spectrum and people assume a lot about you because but I think that's really dangerous and bad, but we can get into that later.
Honestly, man, that's, if there's any time to talk about it, it's now. If that's what's on your mind,
well, let's start with where we were at when all this kind of happened. What has it been? 2 years, 3 years? I don't even know.
I think it was
2023. So it's like,
it's been
so a few years.
Yeah. So I remember this, 2019, like December 31st, I went to like a conference, it was like a Christian youth conference called Passion in Atlanta. And we went because the group I was with wanted to go, and I was like, fine, I'll go because I want to go see it. I want to go see Atlanta, and so I got to go travel and do that. So it was fun, and it was in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, which is really cool.
I totally forgot about that. Yeah,
it's awesome event. But basically, they did the countdown to 2020 in the building, like during a song, right? Like it was like super big. Wow, this is crazy. This is gonna be our year, 2020. And like 2 months later, we're back. I'm back at college with you, and what was it? March? Was it March that this all kind of started?
I think it was early March, sort of the end of February, is when we started getting emails from the school about potential different hybrid models or different ways of potentially going about the situation. But
all I remember was I was extremely worried. Extremely worried. I thought it was legitimately going to be a like a Spanish influenza kind of that's the way people were talking. It was kind of upgrade, like this is gonna kill like tens of millions of people. And and I don't know why I thought this. I heard the rhetoric and I was like, oh, this is probably pretty drastic. We gotta be safe and all that. And so I recall Washington, which is where Washington State is where our college is. There was talk for some reason of closing the state border to like limit travel and spread. And I was like, screw that. So I booked a flight a week out, and Jordan left before me really fast and got back home. So I was up there in Washington for like a week without her, and I was really worried they would cancel my flight. No, sorry. What am I talking about? I didn't fly home. I drove home.
I was going to say, I remember you drove hours in one day.
Jordan was flying. That's why I got confused. We were worried they were going to cancel her flight. I drove a week after that because I had to get some stuff done for school. A week after that, I packed everything up in like one night, threw it all in my car, and then I drove 17 hours straight down to Vegas. So I got up at like 4 in the morning, something like that.
I remember.
Started driving down. So you go east to Montana, you go down through Idaho and then Utah, kind of road, and then you come into Vegas that way. That was the most brutal drive of my life, but I was so motivated because I didn't want to get stuck in any state without my family or my then girlfriend, right? Like Jordan was my girlfriend at that point. So I was like, I don't want to be stuck up here by myself. And then really like, this is honestly what went through my head is like, I don't want them all to die or me to die apart. Right? Like and that's how bad I thought it was going to be. I know.
That's crazy.
I know. Yeah. Not that
I never knew that. I never knew that you were that, like, it was that, that fear was very present for you.
The thing was like, no one knew. And that's why
that's true. Yeah.
That's why it was like, no one knew the extent of how severe this sickness could be. And we thought, it had a scary name, coronavirus. And it sounded like it was like an upgraded flu that like takes people out. And it sounded like a SARS kind of deal.
And SARS COVID.
Yeah. And I was like, dang, okay, I'm going to be with my family if this all goes to crap. And when I got home to Vegas, I recall distinctly that like my mom was like getting all the rations for like, she's getting a bunch of canned food and toilet paper and like stocking up, and like the stores were running out of stuff. Like people were legitimately
it's like a mass, mass hysteria and fear.
And it was an interesting time, and in that we were still trying to do classes and finish the semester.
Yes,
I gotta tell you, that was probably my worst semester of Whitworth ever.
I'm sure it was for a lot of people across
because my mind wasn't there. I was like, So anyway, tell your side of the story.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting because my very first memories about COVID sort of happened actually in October of that year, because I can't remember when like news sources started to talk about what was going on in China, because obviously it started there in Wuhan. So I was on a committee for the Whitworth Wind Symphony at the time, because we were planning on traveling to China actually to in the spring. So like in March, April, we were supposed to go over there and tour. And Wind Symphony is like a wind band, and so there's probably like 50 to 60 of us that were going to go travel during our spring break and go play all around China, not just in one spot. And I believe, like, I don't know, I'd have to go back. Maybe I'm kind of biased because Wuhan's out there, but we were going across the country. It's a big country and stuff. So we weren't just going to stay in like Beijing or one spot. But anyways, once this talk about a virus started coming up, we had to make kind of a game plan as a committee and talk about different alternatives and what was going to happen. So as the months started progressing on towards winter break, this situation worsened in China enough that the travel coordinators recommended that we did not travel there at all. So we decided to switch. Instead of going to China, we were going to go to Germany. And we thought, okay, that'd be good. So we kind of announced to the whole band, like, hey, we can't go to China, but we still get to go to Germany. So that's pretty cool. And everyone was, I think, pretty excited about that. Because at this point, like, COVID was, honestly, I hate to say it or to make light of it in this way, but at the time, I think people were treating it more like a meme. Like the Redditors and people on the internet, how they are. But it just seemed like, this crazy thing that was happening in China, and, people make jokes about it in the United States and probably elsewhere too. But it wasn't until obviously things into the winter, the situation started to worsen. And I'm pretty sure it was in January or February. It was pretty much right up to the point though, like some people had paid most of the money, if not all of the money, to go to Germany when the travel company that the Wind Symphony was working with decided to call the trip off. And we as a traveling committee or whatever decided that would be the best option as well. And obviously that really like sucked. But it also, I think that's when, for me, I started to get a little bit concerned about the whole entire situation, because it was like, wow, like international travel is being affected by this. And that normally doesn't happen a lot, at least worldwide. Maybe there's a sanction against a certain country, but, stopping travel, that's a pretty big deal. And then when I really knew that shit kind of hit the fan was, I think you might have been there, but it was either Casey, James, and at the time too, for context, we were both living in the same house with some people, and we were watching a basketball game. Like I said, I can't remember if you were there, Spencer, but somebody was there with me. It might have been Casey, and I was watching it, and I can't remember who was playing. But right before the game was about to start, the refs came onto the court and they're like, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to delay this game. This will not be like played tonight.
Wow.
And I was just like, yeah, I was like, whoa. So like the NBA like shut down, like just randomly. It was like on a Wednesday or a Thursday.
Yeah.
And like, that's when you knew, like, at least for me, it's funny because I like sports, but I was like, oh shit. Like, they are taking this really seriously. And, that was in, I can't remember what month it must have been like late February or March, but that was like the last time a basketball or really any like sporting event would be played until months later. But yeah, so those are kind of my first initial memories of how the whole situation happened. And I just remember too, as more information was coming out, it was hard to kind of go through the different sources and media outlets and try and discern what was like factual and what was just, people talking out of their ass on the internet. Because when anything crazy happens, you're going to have, some Joe Schmo sitting on his computer typing his own theory. And then, you got the different media outlets who might be biased politically towards one way, and they're going to spin it the way they want to. So this whole like thing, like trying to figure out, what's going on, how safe you need to be. Like, I think at this point too, like masks weren't even in the conversation yet. It was mostly just like, oh shit, like we might get it or you might not. It's like a just kind of a scary situation. I don't. And then that's the other thing I remember too is we got out of class one day, and I was with some people, and we got the email from our university that basically classes were not going to resume in person, and things were going to kind of shut down and move fully online. And I'm sure a lot of people watching this and a lot of people in any type of school, college, high school, whatever it is, probably experienced a very similar thing where you just got out of class or were in class and got that notification that, we're not coming back tomorrow. So, yeah.
Yeah. Did you finish out the semester in Spokane? I forget.
That's what I was trying to remember. I went home. I think I did go home.
Yeah.
I went back here. Yeah. Went back home. Emily and I drove, I think.
That's right.
And I ended up coming back that summer, which is a whole nother story. But I think shortly after you left, because you left before me.
Yeah.
But I think when you left, I had this thought in my mind where I was like, man, he's like really about to do this 15-hour drive to go back to Vegas. So my 5-hour drive is nothing compared to that. So I should probably just go home and be with my family because I don't know what's going to happen. So that's my thoughts behind that.
Yeah. No,
but I think Casey and James ended up staying throughout the whole time because they were pretty sure they were there through the summer too.
Part of that is honestly, man, I don't know their reasons, so maybe we should have them back on to explain it. But I feel like part of that is like Amariah and Katie, their perspective, their respective wives, both lived in the area. And so
that's true.
Like, it would make sense to just kind of hang out and be around them,
Right.
So, and they weren't married yet then, but that was kind of like a big motivation for me. It was like, I could be fine staying in Spokane, like if Jordan was still up here, but like, I think the day after big news announced, like Jordan's dad just like booked her a ticket and like, hey, you're coming home. I was like, okay, shoot. So I just decided to drive. So I remember COVID. So it was so odd. I'm trying to remember what I did that summer, and because the semester finished, school finished. It was funny. Jordan and I were taking a tennis course for the spring.
I remember that because I almost signed up for it.
Yeah, and we had to like cancel that. So that like basically we went and we had to just say like we did hours for running and all that kind of stuff. So it was really weird. So classes were weird and the semester finished up.
Classes sucked.
Yeah, and they sucked, and I was like, okay, I'm done with this. So summer comes around, and I'm trying to remember what I did for work that summer. I don't know if I think I did like Postmates. Like I drove for Postmates.
I remember you saying that. Yeah.
Yeah. That was
delivery.
like, and that was when summertime. I remember was when like masks and like everything
started
like that was coming
implement.
out, and they were still building out the vaccine. And like Pfizer and Moderna or whatever, they were like starting to build it out, and so it was not complete yet. And like I remember the talk was about like once we get the vaccine, it's gonna be all right. It's gonna be fine.
And see that, yep.
and like once that's out, like we're gonna be fine. We're gonna go back to normal. That was the big thing. And and it was, dude. When I think back over the last, I guess 3 years now, probably more like 2, but it's only January 23. But the last 2 years, our society has changed so much.
It really has.
Like, and I'm even talking like over COVID, I had so much more time to myself like just with myself and the internet just was like in everybody's lives in a huge way. No one went out. Like, I remember people were worried concerts were never going to come back. And like, you know,
it was the age of virtual Zoom events and Zoom this, Zoom webinar, Zoom class, a Zoom concert, you know,
all that kind of stuff. It was crazy. And so that summer it was weird. It felt scary. Like, oh, are you ever going to get back to regular life? You know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. For an introvert, it was awesome. But like, you know, for the quarantine part of it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing I kind of wanted to get into, and I'm not. So I guess you kind of alluded to some of it there in your sentiment that you just said or shared. But see, for me, like, I would also consider myself an introvert most of the time, and so the first like part of quarantine or whatever, right after March and stuff, it's pretty cool. Like, it was cool to go on class. I think, you know, it didn't wear off for a couple months, I think, but, you know, just being able to kind of sit in bed and do Zoom class or whatever. And I have to say, for me too, because my major was in the performing arts, a lot of this shit for us just got canceled because you can't really come online and rehearse an ensemble. It doesn't necessarily work very well doing that. There was definitely some creative things that people did, like combining video clips and making, you know, cool music through that way and stuff. But at least right away, like 2020 spring, I don't think anybody in the performing arts is really doing much. So, but I still had to take a couple gen eds because this was our junior year, junior spring before senior year. And so, I remember the first couple weeks, I should say, of online class. I was like, man, this is great. I can just like not do too much and like screw up, or like some of the teachers or professors decided to make things modules. So you no longer had to, you know, sit through a lecture. You could just watch it whenever you wanted. But the downside to that is, of course, you know, like, you just get lazy and procrastinate and don't do it.
You're not forced to get up every morning and go to class and be productive.
Exactly. But I think kind of after a couple months of that, it started to get old. And then once the school year ended, I kind of went into like and I'm sure a lot of people relate to this, it was like a pseudo depression. And I'm kind of self-diagnosing myself here, so I'm using that term lightly. But I was just not doing great. I felt just like there was no one around. That's the other thing about COVID right away during quarantine. It was like the whole human interaction, like going out and seeing people outside or hugging people or like, you know, seeing your friends and being like, that was all kind of taken away. And, you know, you're not supposed to do that. So, and going and visiting people, those kind of things. And although I would consider myself introverted, I think I do kind of thrive in situations where there's a lot of people around, or there's, you know, even living in the house, you know, we're all, you know, we're not talking to each other all the time, but there's just people around and feeling like you're in some kind of a community. But after I went home, it's just me and my mom, like, felt really isolated. And so, one of the positive outcomes that came through that is I kind of picked up running again. And I just remember into that whole summer running a shit ton of miles and stuff, and, you know, using that as a stress outlet. And I decided in June of 2020 to move back to Spokane because there's more of my friends kind of up there. Casey and James were up there and Ben was up there. So I decided to move back and, you know, be somewhere in like a somewhat of a, you know, community again. Cause I remember like this one night having an anxiety attack, and I had never had one before. And it was like the most crippling thing ever. I just woke up at like 1 a.m. and was just like kind of like fell to the ground. I don't know. It sounds so dramatic, but I was like crawling and I just felt like I was going to die or something. And so I have no idea. Like it must have just been all the stress and anxiety around everything that was going on. And, you know, constantly seeing like COVID, like everywhere and updates about it. And yeah, so that was kind of long winded, but do you have any similar mental health wise, do you think kind of during those initial months of quarantine, how did you kind of deal with that stress and anxiety?
Man, where I was at, this is my version of that is just like a numb, like I just go numb kind of deal. Like, everything blurs out. As a matter of fact, like I hadn't truly reflected on that year until recently. Like maybe a couple of months ago, looking back, being like, wow, 2 years have gone by. What? Like I graduated college. I didn't even think, I didn't even look at the milestones at all. And I really do feel like a fog started in 2020 for me through COVID. Like everything's blurry, and I have to really stop and think about, okay, what happened this, what happened that, so for me, it wasn't so much like anxiety, but I can definitely say there was some level of like, lack of motivation. What are we doing right now? So much time on like YouTube and the internet and just like stuff like that. Yep. And it was crazy because, at one point, Jordan lived, at the time we lived 20 minutes apart. So, or around there, And I remember like there's some weeks where we just couldn't see each other, because we were both either really busy or like a big quarantine happened or something, like a big, like really stay inside this week. Like, like stuff like that. Or someone got COVID. And so we don't want to spread it, that kind of thing. Yeah. And I remember there was like weeks there, I was just like, I woke up, I sat on my couch and like screwed around and like went to bed. Like that was the day. It was just terrible, and nothing productive and nothing inspiring or anything that drove me. And so I think that was the start of that. And I came out of that only around like summer 2021, like after graduating and stuff, I really felt like we came out of that. I mean, like the fog kind of deal. Yeah. And that kind of thing. So I don't know. It was a weird time. I'm glad we're not in it anymore.
Yeah. No, 100%.
So I remember this too, by the way. When you told me how much you were running, I was legitimately worried about you.
I was worried about myself, but not until later. But so for the viewers out there, let me tell you why he probably was concerned. Because, of course, running, I think everyone would consider it's a pretty healthy activity. It's good cardiovascular exercise, and it keeps you keeps your heart in good shape, and it's just a good thing to do. But like anything, if you overdo it, it can be a little toxic. It can be a little bad. But in my eyes, I think what had happened was I needed somewhere to channel all of that anxiety and energy, and running is just a perfect way to do that. And I've always run fairly consistently over the past, I don't know, maybe since I was in high school, and I've had little breaks here and there, but even at Whitworth, I would run. But I think when I really took a step back was in July of 2020 when I was back in Spokane. And it was really funny because I started drinking a lot more during COVID summer.
Everyone
I think that was, for being honest, that was a coping mechanism for Americans, is to just, well, I guess we're at home, let's open the bottle, which is probably not a good thing. But I was no exception to that. And there would be days where, and this bled over into the fall when you came back, and I think you saw it then too a little bit. But in July, I went back and looked a while ago, and I think I clocked in about just under 200 miles that month. So roughly like 50 miles a week for the whole month of July, which for a non-runner who's like on a cross-country team or something, just an average person, not training for anything, that's a lot of mileage. Like you could get hurt just going from 0 to 50 miles a week. You should not do that. But my dumbass, and I was running a little bit before that, but my dumbass would, I'd be drinking throughout the week, and then I'd go do these long runs. Like I'd get drunk like the night before, like a Friday night, and just, get plastered with Ben and Sarah and I think James a couple times, whoever was there. I don't even remember, but I'd just be drinking beers, drinking tequila, and I'd go wake up the next morning and run like 10 miles.
Yeah. That's why I was worried.
Yeah. And like that was bad because that sort of this alcohol running thing continued on into the fall a little bit. And I remember this one time, and maybe you remember this story too. I can't remember what was going on. There was some party at our house, and I was partaking in it in a little bit. You might have been there, or maybe you were coming from Jordan's house. But I just remember I was drunk, and I was running up. We live kind of on a slanted hill area where there's like 6 houses. But our driveway is really steep, and it's probably 100, maybe like 80 meters.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty good, like little uphill stretch. Long and steep. And I can't remember if Spencer came out of the house, if you came out of the house, or if you drove in and came out of your car. But I was running like hill repeats, just plastered. I think I had like a Corona or some shit on the road. Like I was taking sips before reps and like going up and down. And Spencer just comes up and he's like, "Man, what the fuck are you, like, what are you doing?" Like, and that's when I knew it was bad. But what's your version of that?
No, I remember that clear as day, dude. I was literally going to share that story with your permission, but you should share it.
Yeah,
dude.
Go ahead.
Dude, I'm at Jordan's house. We had like eaten dinner or something and whatever. And I had to go do homework. And so I drove back, or it was something, I don't know, but I drove back and whipped in and all that kind of stuff. And I just see you down at the bottom of the hill, like running up, like sprinting, like high knees, sprinting up the hills. And you got like a Rona. And what I thought was happening was there was a house of girls down the street, and they would have parties a lot. And
soccer girls,
and they would have a bunch of guys over too, like everybody. They would have all sorts of people over, and I legitimately
we got to talk about that sometime.
Yeah,
they're funny times.
Yeah, it was. I legitimately
sorry.
No. So a thing about Anthony when he's a little drunk is he gets a little mouthy too. So he, I
talk more shit than I can make.
This has happened a couple times where I get a little worried about Anthony and like the people he's talking to, right? And I'm like, oh hey buddy, let's not talk to this big guy who's a lot bigger than me, like.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Is like I talk shit for the whole group, and then you guys have to deal with the consequences.
So I legitimately thought you were running up the hill. I thought you had walked down and like talk shit to some guy, and they were like chasing you up the hill. I thought you were like running from someone. And so I was really worried. Yeah. And then I saw it was just like you were running up and down. You ran up. I sat in my car and watched you for a second. And then you like ran back down and ran back up. Come out like, what are you doing, bro?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah.
Are you all right? And so I think we had a deep conversation in our driveway. I don't know what about.
Yeah.
I kind of forget that, but actually maybe I
did. Yeah. Maybe I honestly, we can go into that like at a later time, but I think I do remember See, that whole summer with COVID, and I talked with Spencer about this a lot. I was struggling with, I think, a lot of different things in life, and so it was challenging to juggle all of those things and all of these like mental things and issues that were popping up during that time. And during the fall too, just remember being stressed out because I was applying to graduate programs in schools, and so I was working really hard under, just like everyone. I don't want to make it seem like, oh, woe is me, because these are the conditions that everyone was working under. But I just remember feeling a lot of pressure to work and exceed in sort of the parameters that COVID had set up to be able to successfully get into grad school and get all the application paperwork, auditions, and all that stuff. And I remember that night being a low point, though, because I realized that how I was handling it, and like alcohol and using that to cope with it, wasn't going to work and going to be a good idea moving forward with that. So, but yeah, that was a good conversation we had.
It was.
And I think it really helped align me a little bit more back. Yeah, there was some more struggles after that, but nothing. You never came home again and saw me running up the hill, at least.
Yeah,
that's good.
Well,
when I was strong. Running hills is good, but maybe not when you're plastered.
And this story, like, it might skew evidence saying like, oh, Anthony, he was drinking more than us. That's not true. I mean, everyone was in that house. Everybody was dealing with their stuff and coping with things. And our
alcohol cabinet was full.
It was, and then it was empty, and then it was full again, and empty and then full. Right?
I will admit I've contributed pretty heavily to that stash.
It was a really weird senior year. Was weird. It was everyone was trying to figure out it's also that added stress of what am I going to do after this. I mean, I certainly was worried about my future situation and all that kind of stuff. Like I was like, I don't know if I'm going to apply to a grad school or if I'm just going to try to figure something out, because I didn't have a plan before college. Just kind of went. So I was like worried that I would just kind of end up not making money and sitting around doing nothing, and or like no one would hire me. So I was dealing with that, and drinking a lot, and really just worried about everything. And but on the other hand, like I was planning on proposing to Jordan, and
yes.
I proposed in June 21.
Yeah.
And that was on June 14th, and then got married the next year. So like there was exciting things in that time. And
100%.
I'll tell you a story. So we went. I know we're going a little off topic, but we went on this ski trip with my family and Jordan's family that winter. I'm pretty sure.
Winter 21.
Winter.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know what month it was. I think it was after Christmas. I want to say it was after Christmas and New Year's, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm kind of forgetting, but I had a similar situation to you. I had a panic attack.
I remember you.
Up on so we had like skied all day, and I'm a bit of a hypochondriac. Like I think stuff's wrong with
me too.
I've learned this recently. Like I think something's wrong when nothing's wrong. With my body, and we had gotten back, and I don't know if you've ever been snowboarding or skiing. Like you've been out in the cold for a long time with even like warm stuff on. You come back and you warm up, and there's still a lingering exhaustion that your body's been trying to keep warm for 8 hours, and is now like finally relaxing, and it kind of freaks you out if you're not ready for it. For me, at least, like I got a little lightheaded, and it was also high altitude, and so like I started like kind of freaking out. I'm like, I'm not doing too well right now. and like I feel lightheaded. I feel like I'm like gonna pass out or something. And then this is where the psychology of myself got into it. My left arm started throbbing a little bit, started aching.
Thought you had a heart attack.
My head thought that's the sign of a heart attack. Okay. I'm going to make it very clear to everybody. I don't have high cholesterol. I don't have my beats per minute is like 59. I recently got it. It's like my heartbeat's fine. Like my heart's fine. But here I am thinking I'm having a heart attack at the age of I think it was 22, 23 at that point. And I was like, what is going on? And I literally went and laid on the ground in the room that I was in, and just was freaking out the whole night, like heavy breathing, thinking my heart was palpitating, and it was crazy. And I look back on that and I realized that the stress of that whole year, not knowing what I'm doing next, the change of it all, I was going to ask her dad the next day if I got married.
I remember that.
Yeah. And so the high pressure, the change of everything going on, like my life is different now and I don't know what I'm doing, and like all this kind of stuff, it just built up, and I had never spoken about it. And then I had a panic attack, and it was like a wake up call that I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't addressed things in my life. And that was like most of our house. Most of our house was kind of in the same boat. We were all a little. And
then you guys all decided to propose during COVID. that was your way out. You just all right, let's get married. No, I'm just
Great
kidding.
Decision. No, I'm yeah. So anyway, that I understand.
No, yeah, and I do remember us having a conversation shortly after that time, and yeah, I think there's multiple people from Whitworth and who I spoke to and had similar type of things happen. And for Casey and James and everyone of that 2020 class, I bet that, felt really weird and kind of disappointing, not having a graduation and just sort of ending college on that note, not getting to say bye to all your friends. And see, the celebration was delayed. I believe they actually got to walk, or didn't get to walk until our 2021 ceremony, right? They had like a 2020 after, but I thought that was kind of weird. The only reason we could do that is because we went to a smaller school, and there's not, if you went to a state school or somewhere bigger,
got nothing.
You were all virtual. But all right, well, let's get into the more spicy side of things, because as we know, COVID's not gone. We've got new variants, it seems like, and new shots and new this and that. But for the most part, masks are optional now. Social distancing isn't really much of a thing, except for in healthcare facilities and things like that. But I think where we're at now, it's sort of made things a little bit more clear. And like I prefaced at the beginning of this conversation, we're having a conversation as two vaccinated people. So I don't think either of us are conspiracy theorists. I'm not trying to get us canceled. I'm not trying to say anything I'm not trying to pretend to be a medical expert either. Let me say that. Or be a doctor. Because there are people who went to school for that, and that I would defer to them. But there are also things that are a little bit common sense that I just find funny now about the whole situation. So maybe we can get into some of those. And Spencer, I didn't run any of this by you, so we might have some disagreements, or you might agree with me.
It's all right. We'll chat.
But yeah, so I think a good intro into this is just something I saw the other day that just sort of pissed me off a little bit, I'll be honest. And I've thought about it the past couple of days, but this was earlier in the week, and I was at an oncology center, and this is where people who have cancer or who need to go get chemo and treatment, that they go to this place. And so I was there with my mom, who has breast cancer and gets treatment at this place. And so I was sitting there waiting with her, and obviously it's a masked requirement place because it is a healthcare facility. But as we were waiting for the doctor, there was this older gentleman, I don't know, roughly 50, and you could tell it was probably like his first time there because he brought in two people who were really close to him and that he obviously really wanted at this doctor's appointment. Now, keep in mind, everyone's wearing masks, these two people. So anyways, my mom goes in and I'm just waiting with her stuff, but these three people are still kind of sitting around me. And the nurse lady comes out and reads his name, and all three of them get up and are about to walk in. And she's like, "Oh, no. Like, we still have one visitor policy only." And so this guy was rightfully so, like, a little bit upset by this, even though it is the policy or whatever. So he starts, talking to this lady, "Hey, this is really important to me. Like, she's wearing a mask. Can you please, like, just make it? Can we all go in?" And she was like, "I'm sorry, sir. Like, we can't allow that." And so I'm not sure if it was his daughter or niece or something, but younger, she was probably around our age. She decided to sit back and not go in with him. And I was just thinking in my head, like, okay, like, that's a little ridiculous, right? I think at this point, we can all agree that, like, some of the restrictions that are still in place are, I think, a little overly cautious. And we can get into, like, more of the reasons why. But I just feel like common sense would tell you that in that situation, having an extra person who is masked is not going to increase the likelihood of COVID spreading in that facility. Like, maybe it increases by, like, less than 1% by having 3 people instead of 2 people go into, like, I don't know. And in most places, people don't wear a mask. Like, that's the only place you do wear a mask now, pretty much. I mean, obviously, there you do still see people who choose to wear a mask, but there are plenty of people who are just going on, like, normal life now.
Yeah.
Anyways, let me, before I just go off, let's hear your thoughts on that.
No, I have heard pretty awful stories of, like, someone wants to go, a family wants to go visit someone in the hospital. This is probably, like, during the peak of COVID masking and all that, where, the hospital barred them from visiting for COVID reasons, and, like, the person died alone.
Yep.
And they hadn't seen their family, and the family hadn't seen them, and it was like, now, it's like, a policy is a policy, so they put it in place, and the people who are enforcing it are probably not the people who have created the policy. And so they're just doing
exactly.
their job. They're told from their boss that they have to bar people, one guest at a time or whatever it was.
Yep.
So what's really happening is you get all of a sudden, like, people down at the bottom listening to the rules or not listening to them, and then getting mad at each other about it. And it's like, this is a little tangent, but I think it makes sense in this conversation. Like, I was a waiter during COVID, and someone walked in and they weren't wearing a mask, and they were gonna meet a family like at a table. It was probably 5 feet away, and I'm not even kidding. Like, the door, and then, like, 5 feet away is their table where they're gonna sit down. The guy walked over really fast, sat down, and when you get to the table, you can take your mask off.
Yeah.
So this guy walked to the table, sat down. The hostess saw it, walked over, and said, "Sir, you need a mask." And to be able to walk around. And he was like, "What do you mean? I'm sitting down. Like, I don't need a mask on." And she's like, "But you walked over here without a mask on. And that's against our rules. You have to go get a mask because we don't have any extra." And he's like, "What?" And he got all pissed off.
Yeah.
Probably justified. But here's the hostess who is just trying to do her job.
Do her job, yeah.
And she's told from the corporate office, like, you can't let people in without a mask on.
Yep.
It was definitely like, it was weird situations like that. And it's these rules top down that cause a lot of tension in like regular situations that otherwise that tension's unnecessary. And so I could see definitely the weirdness of it. Anyway, your take.
Yeah, well, I think, and I guess I'll go off a little bit, and I just want to reiterate too. I did not major in public health. I am not a doctor, so obviously, and I'm not trying to claim to be either. But I think, like I said, now that we are in 2023, there are a lot of known factual things that make it seem like maybe the handling of certain situations wasn't as appropriate. But that being said, like you were saying, in a lot of situations where new facts and new evidence and new data, new studies are coming out constantly, it's a little hard for, the people at the top, whether it's a business or whether it's the public health officials, to sort of try and get out proper information that's not conflicting to the public in an efficient way. And of course, whenever you make a new policy or make a new mandate, there's always going to be people who are not happy with that. And there's always going to be people who aren't going to comply and make it really difficult. And I will say too, I think throughout the entire process, like I said, we're both vaxxed. Like, I always wear a mask where it was required. And I think that's a positive thing about COVID is, like, I have never seen like so much care and love that people had. And they were so scared of spreading it to somebody who might have been more vulnerable to the virus, and like the people who were what the fuck am I trying to say? They were their immune system immunocompromised. Yeah, that was a big word that kept being thrown out. And like the narrative and the message was, okay, maybe like as COVID started to become less of like most people, and this is why I want to be careful, because like the language, like if I would have said this maybe a couple years ago, I'd get a lot of flack. But I think we can say now that for most people, if you get it, it's not, and you're in, decent health, you're in good health relatively, it's not going to be like a life altering disease or sickness that you get. That doesn't mean that, for everyone that's the case. It could be really, obviously hospitals were flooded and that sort of thing. But I'll say that first, like the outpouring of support for like small businesses and local businesses, the outpouring of support for people, who just wanted to protect everyone around them. Like, I totally agree with that. I think every good human being can say that. Now, though, let's go to a narrative I disagree with, and I want to get your take on this. I specifically remember when the vaccine came out, the main narrative everywhere that was being pushed was that if you get the vaccine, this is going to stop. Like, just get the jab, do it. You can't spread it. You're not going to get sick. Like, we need everyone to get the vaccine so that this can be over. And it became a war of the vaccinated and then like non-vaccinated people. And this did not bring a lot of love and compassion for people. People were attacking each other for not wanting to get the vaccine. People were very upset with the, unvaccinated. And it became this whole like war in our society, at least in America, of the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. And then the vaccinated, would get all these privileges, and this is the fucked up thing, Spencer. This is what I think about sometimes. I remember they wanted you to get the vaccine so bad that in the state of Washington and the state of Oregon, you would get entered into a lottery to win millions of fucking dollars to get the vaccine. No, is not normal. Like looking back on it, like that is weird that they like were trying to get people to do this so much that they got desperate enough to like offer all these prizes and like different shit just to get the vaccine.
Yeah.
And like I said, at the time, you know, obviously we don't know as much as we know now, but it was like, okay, if you get it, like you can't spread it, you can't get sick. And that was like the main thing. And as we know now, actually, because I've gotten COVID twice now having the vaccine, it doesn't stop the spread. And from my understanding, maybe it slows it down, but from my understanding, you can still get it. You can still experience symptoms. Like it's not exactly what they were pushing it out to be. And that I think is a little sketchy because Pfizer and Moderna and all these pharmaceutical companies, and once again, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, but I think we can all objectively say that those companies obviously are not losing money by making this vaccine. I would argue that maybe they're making a little bit of money. Maybe they, you know, had some ulterior motives in terms of. Is that fair to say? What do you think?
I mean, just look at Big Pharma, and that confirms your. Just in general, the opioid epidemic.
Right.
You know, that's people peddling pharmaceuticals so that they keep their business alive. That's a right. From their point of view, they're doing what they need to do to make their company survive.
Exactly. It's normal capitalism, I guess, but Absolutely. It's anyways, but what's your opinion on that? Because like I said, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor. I'm not trying to claim to be that, but I think it is a little bit interesting that everybody's kind of accepted that okay, if you get the vaccine, it sort of helps with your symptoms and it's not as severe. But for me, I think the most important thing about the vaccine is like, you know, not spreading it to, you know, other people, because that's how it could get to someone who's, you know, compromised or has health conditions that might, you know, COVID might affect them more seriously. But it seems like that doesn't really work, right?
Yeah, man, the vaccine drama I did not expect to talk about today, but I'm fine with it.
Sorry. I also we didn't run any of it. Like, you know, we're just doing this off the top. So
I don't
I'm putting them on the spot.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I was like, man, I was not expecting it. My mentality was like, I think I was like most Americans, and I was like, if that's what I need to do to try to, you know, promote public health in the best way possible, then I will absolutely get a vaccine. Right? Like, I was like, that's, you know, even if, you know, some people were like, it's mandatory, that's illegal. It's like, well, okay. They make you, they give you shots when you can't think about it when you're a kid. Like, you know,
exactly.
So it's not like that part of it to me was not as dramatic for me. But I did see, what I saw through this whole process was the, let's say, culmination, or maybe the climax, or like, maybe not even the climax, but a big part of the outpouring of polarization that we've seen recently in this country, in particular. I think that public health thing that a majority of, you know, middle Americans, as in politically middle, were just like, yeah, sure, just tell me what to do, I'll do it, right? And I'll try to do my best to, you know, follow that. I'll mask up, I'll vaccine, you know, I'll do the DoorDash to support the businesses in the town, you know, so they don't go under, like all that. I think most people are doing that, and then other people were weaponizing the goodwill of a lot of people. I think, you know, especially, you know, like some people were using it as a political tactic to say, we're on the right side, trust us with your decisions. Take some horse dewormer instead of the vaccine because it's healthier for you. right? Or whatever the whatever the thing is.
You talking about Joe Rogan?
No, I was not. I was just saying. I heard.
Oh, did Trump say that?
No, maybe he did, but my.
You're talking about ivermectin, I think, is the drug that caught a lot of controversy.
Yes, I was just saying the talking point. I wasn't trying to call out. Yep. Like,
no.
Take this instead of that, or do this, do that, and then on the other side, like, if you're not getting vaccinated, you're a rebel in this country. You should be taking all this kind of stuff, and I was not appreciative of that part, and it really made me realize that there is a huge power struggle for influence over the general populace of the American people right now.
Yeah.
And that this was just a crisis that both sides kind of tried to take control of. Right. I mean, dude, there was a conspiracy going around, like, if you get the vax, you're going to be infertile.
Yep. I remember hearing that.
And I was like,
there's a lot of nonsense. Yeah.
It was like, and then even
you're going to have a computer chip in you. Like, they're tracking you.
Yeah. Microchip that the government now knows where you're at all times. I'm like, no, just, hey, by the way, you have these. Like,
they already fucking know where you're at. Yeah, exactly.
Like, they're not, you're logged in. No, I remember there was this older woman at my church who was like, Spencer, I'm going to get the vaccine because she said, she's like, I'm not going to have kids anymore. So I guess it's fine that I do. Right. But you, Spencer, you're still on your way to having children. So don't have it yet. Like, it was going to make you infertile, and I was like, what are you talking about? If that's the case, then we're all screwed because so many people got a vaccine, and so it was weird drama to me. And in my mind, polarized people made a bigger deal out of it than it was. I thought it was my kind of civic duty, let's say, to get vaccinated, follow the rules, and wait for all this to blow over, which it did. So
yeah, for the most part.
For the most part.
I don't.
Take.
Like I said, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, and I think that's also part of the problem is that both of the main political sides in this country definitely used COVID as a tool to sort of fuel the fire of their followers and that sort of thing. And obviously, if you're on the right, you're digging more into these conspiracies, and you're trying to like go against what the protocols are and stuff. And on the left, like, you're kind of the opposite, generally speaking. But I mean, I think there's a lot of people like us who are kind of, just trying to be good citizens, and but don't also are aware that we're not like sure exactly what's going on or where.
Yeah.
But I think everyone can agree too, like the truth is never really on either extreme side. It always ends up being, it's cliche to say, right? But it does. It seems like it always ends up being, there's some things that, the protocols that were good. And, there are some things that you should be skeptical about, I would hope, as, if you're an intelligent person, you shouldn't just, not have certain questions. And I think for the most part, a lot of people did. And then they made a decision that was best for them. But that's where, maybe there's some disagreement, because some people, might have decided not to get the vaccine and decided that's what's best for them. And some people decided, like us, to get the vaccine. And obviously we decided that's what was best for us. Yeah. But
can I mention something? So you talked about like how most things are like kind of in the middle, most people. And I've been hearing this talk recently, maybe probably Twitter, which is just terrible. But back when I was scrolling on Twitter, but there's this talk about how like being a centrist is like a bad thing. And they talk like it's like a weak position, or it's like you're actually just disguising your opinions under like being accepting, but actually you're just as bad as the far right people or the far left people or whatever. And
right.
And I'm getting really sick of that rhetoric, because I'm like, number one, a centrist, that kind of labeling makes it seem like this person doesn't stand for anything, which that's not true. That's not true at all.
Or they just play devil's advocate. That's one I hear a lot. I'm sure you do. Oh, you're just being a contrarian for the sake of being a contrarian.
I'm like, no.
It's like,
most people don't do that.
You should. That's how fucking science works. Like, you make a hypothesis. You're supposed to like experiment. Sorry. But no, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that is something that gets taken away nowadays, is that we seem to be uncomfortable with not having a like succinct, non-gray area answer, just like a very straightforward answer. Like, if it's not straightforward or like succinct, and like if it's not, just right there, then people get really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I think you should be uncomfortable, because there's a lot of things that are just in the gray area and you can't but I hate it too, because that type of rhetoric doesn't give you any opportunity to grow or learn.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, in order to learn, like, you kind of have to, especially now, like, there's probably not a single unbiased source of news or media that you can consume as a human being, no matter if it's on the left or right or in the center. So it's your job as a person to, if you really care about something, to do research on all different fronts and then come to your own sort of conclusion. And that might be different than, what someone else thinks. But I think the main narrative is that, you have to be this way, you have to be that way. And if you're just in the middle, then you're fucking garbage. Is like, that's not true. But I think, and I'm going to let you respond, but going back to the COVID thing real quick, I think that's a perfect example of like the common sense thing that people didn't see throughout this, pandemic that's still ongoing, is that, majority of people who were hospitalized and who were greatly affected by this were people who had, underlying health conditions. And I know that's kind of a trigger word, but, the other thing that people don't like to talk about is that, and I just looked this statistic up, it might be a little changed, but 40% of Americans are obese. And that, obviously, being obese creates a whole long list of different health issues that, no matter if you get COVID or not, like, you're just not going to be, you're like a very healthy person when, like, you're older, and you're going to have a bunch of health conditions that, our healthcare system, which some would argue, and I would agree, is not a very good healthcare system. You're going to get fucked over by that when, you have to go in for a heart surgery, or when you have to go in to get some, work done. And I think there are some people during COVID who just kind of thought that, oh, I'm going to go get the vaccine and I'm going to be perfectly good. And then they went back to their gelatinous self and fucking sat down and like just did nothing. Maybe that's a little harsh, but it's like common sense would tell you, like, man, this COVID thing's bad. Like, 40% of Americans are obese, right? So like 40% of people, that's a lot of people. That should have been a huge, and maybe it was for a lot of people, that should have been a huge wake up call. And I'm not claiming to be like a health nut either. Like, I don't think I'm as healthy as I could be. I run a lot, but that doesn't mean I'm the most fit person on the planet and eat kale every day. But that's not the point. It's like, if you were one of those people that COVID could have affected you a lot, and maybe you were, in that 40% category, like, that should have been a wake up call. And maybe it was, like I said, for some people, but you got to like get out there and take care of yourself. Like, you got to do other things. It's not just like, oh, I got like stabbed and now I'm good to go. Like, no, but I think that's what a lot of people thought, right? Like, that's a problem. Like, no, you have to, you got to take care of yourself. And a lot of Americans don't take care of this, myself included sometimes. I'm not trying to, bash people, but
it's definitely easy to not take care of yourself. That's for sure. It's easier. It's like, dude, even like medications and like,
no, yeah,
all, like just in general pharmaceutical stuff. Like, I'm just going to take this to solve my problem. Let me say this. I'm a fan of medicine. Okay. Like, I'm not,
like, me too. I take medicine when I don't feel good.
Exactly. And I've been trying to actually like look into medicines that might actually help my situations and all that kind of stuff. Like, that's, I've been looking for like a low dose anti-anxiety things. And, that's been something on my mind, but basically, and really what I'm talking about is the hardcore stuff, opioids and stuff like that with pain, pain and all that kind of things. Like, it's
people
rough.
Get addicted.
Yeah. We had I don't want to speak out of turn, but we had a person in our immediate zone of talking to people at the church that their niece passed away from a fentanyl overdose.
Wow.
Yeah, something was laced with fentanyl, and she drank it, and it took her out. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And it was really sad. And it's like that to me is a problem. Over medicating and
there's a pill for everything.
And it makes me sad. So, I don't know. We should probably wrap it up. We're at an hour 16, but
oh dang,
I know we've been going a while. Eventually, we'll have to do like a special episode that people can get to on Patreon or something.
Like there you go.
Yeah, so
that'd be cool.
You do that, but
unfiltered.
No, as if this was filtered.
No, it wasn't. But yeah. I mean, I think in closing, I think the main thing with COVID and everything, and just in general, at least for me, and I feel like you would agree with me on this, is like a lot of people had to grow up during that time and really go through tough things and different unique challenges and whatever it was. But, I think learning how to decipher through information and make a decision based off of that, and sticking to, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but
thinking for themselves,
thinking for yourself. That's a good way to say it. Yeah,
I hear you, man. That's if only all of us could do that more.
Do you have any closing thoughts on that?
Man, dude, I'm just like, I've gotten like,
I feel like I just hit you with the firestorm.
I've gotten like no sleep the last 3 days, so I was just already tired coming into it. So I was like, I really like the conversation. I really like the conversation. No, I really enjoyed the conversation. I was just like, my mind was like,
No, I got you.
But I hope this was a entertaining episode for some of us out there. I think in the next couple of weeks, I'm trying to get some guests to come on. So we'll see how it goes with some of those people, and I'm looking forward to our future stuff, man.
Yes, sir. I'll be back in Philadelphia when we have our next one. So
that's right. All right, Anthony. I think we can say bye to our people now. So see you, everybody.
Stay safe.